Microsoft HoloLens. HoloLens, Microsoft's augmented reality (AR) viewer, feels like the future of computing. Being upfront, the headgear that I tried at Build 2015 was early development hardware, and it definitely felt that way. But the potential, and how close HoloLens is to achieving it, is simply remarkable. The moment I tried on HoloLens during a Holographic Academy session with fellow journalists, I thought, this is like having a PC on my face. It's not quite that functional yet, but that's how the headgear, and what you see and can do with it, makes me feel. There was no gaming in the session I attended, like we've seen since, more on that later. Instead, I was a developer for 90 minutes, crafting an app in Unity and adding HoloLens functions as I went. With every new function added, like gesture controls and spatial sound, I witnessed how it translates into the HoloLens experience. The session aimed to show how easy it is to develop for HoloLens, but it also demonstrated what you and I will experience once it's out. But, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's hit the latest news around HoloLens. Since March, Microsoft's HoloLens mixed reality headset has been available to developers for the towering price tag $3,000, £2,719, $4,369 Australian dollars. A portion of that high cost can be attributed to a 24-core processor responsible in part for the headset's deflating battery life. The hardware has, since its limited release in the spring, opened up to anyone with a Microsoft account, albeit for the same staggering cost. 2 months later, it arrived in the UK, with plans for a late November launch in Australia. It's not clear when HoloLens will be generally available for purchase, but in the meantime we may have a handful of officially licensed Windows 10 VR headsets on our faces. All things considered, Microsoft may want to accelerate HoloLens production to beat Apple's rumored wearable smart glasses, or even HTC's wireless Vive add-on, to the punch. HoloLens is essentially comprised of 2 rings, a thicker, plastic outer one that contains the guts and a slimmer, cushioned inner one that wraps your head. The inner rings fit adjusts by sliding forward and backward a roller residing on its back. That cushioning is a small touch, but one I appreciate for making it easier to forget you're wearing the viewer and focus on the AR imagery in front of you. The device isn't supposed to sit on your nose, but I found its rubber nose guard to inevitably fall down my nose no matter how often I pry the HoloLens forward. Thankfully, it's optional and comes off easily. HoloLens feels a lot better for me with it off. It looks like it belongs in the office but would blend well in any living room. I also struggled to get HoloLens to fit every time I put it on. I had to regularly retighten, resituate and realign the headgear. When everything fit nicely, the AR imagery was in full view and it felt right. But if it was too tight, too high up or too far forward, my experience was hindered. Standing still made for the best overall viewing experience. The adjustment issues cropped up especially when I would move around, effectively defeating the point in HoloLens. If you have short hair or it's pulled back, you might not have as much trouble as someone with long, loose hair, like myself. It may have been my ability to adjust, but I had a slight headache after I took HoloLens off, like I had been wearing a baseball cap that was 2 sizes too small. The headgear I used was untethered, and I didn't need my hands for anything other than selecting my hologram to move it. It wasn't wired up for battery life, like the first early prototypes shown to press. Fitting issues aside, when HoloLens fits right, it's comfortable. But, like all virtual reality, VR, and AR headgear, its weight is front-loaded. You can't help but feel a noticeable weight hanging off your forehead. The weight isn't uncomfortable, but it is significant. If Microsoft can somehow counterbalance the weight on the sides or back, it would likely alleviate the front-heavy sensation. I wear glasses, and I used HoloLens with them on. They don't press into my face or feel tight around my head, unlike with most VR headsets. I also didn't get nauseous, a frequent occurrence when I wear Oculus Rift. It helps that I can still see my surroundings with HoloLens, so I don't feel disoriented or claustrophobic. If only the HoloLens see-through screen weren't so dark, but the room was dimly lit, so it may be just right for a brighter room. Walking backward in HoloLens feels most uneasy, as I can't quickly turn to see whether something is behind me. The headgear also obstructs my upper peripheral view, so some of my vision is obscured. HoloLens looks and feels like a premium device. Nothing about it screams cheap, which is reflected by the developer edition's price. The gadget looks like it belongs in the office but would also blend well in any living room. As is, HoloLens feels too delicate to stay clean and unscathed in, say, a construction site. I find myself handling HoloLens gently, so unless Microsoft does some ruggedizing, you'll probably want to keep HoloLens out of the reach of youngsters.